Good morning, everybody. I'm Charlie Fink with Ted Schilowitz. It's February 11th, 2022, and it's This Week in XR, sponsored by Virbela. Our guest today will be Ryan Engle, the co-founder and CEO of Golf Plus, which also makes Topgolf and Pro Putt. For the Oculus Quest, Ted and I are addicted to this stupid game, so we'll have to ask Ryan how he did that.
We are legit fans. I think it's a great
Super Bowl weekend here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I think the golf thing is a great provability of stuff you like to do in the real world transfers over into the virtual world.
Well,
right?
and arguably it's better because it's faster and easier, and it takes an hour or an hour and a half to play 18 holes.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. It's I don't know if I'd argue better, but certainly different and a interesting viable replacement for getting that feeling of hitting a golf ball. Yeah.
And so big news close to home yesterday. It looks like Binance is buying about 15% of Forbes.
Really interesting, huh? Really interesting financial news that a company that's largely involved in the crypto revolution is taking on a stalwart of the mainstream sort of press for such a long time, right?
What we're seeing is some of that crypto money buying real world assets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was a lot of what was going on in the late 90s when AOL bought Time Warner. You know, the company was trying to leverage its inflated stock price to buy something, you know, that had real world value and a traditional dependable revenue streams.
Yeah, really interesting. Yeah.
And then, this is another thing I did that I wanted to bring up. Just wasn't in the column, but I did put it up on Twitter. I am struggling to understand the difference between Web3 and between Web3 and the metaverse.
Interesting.
Right. So, I mean, could you easily explain their connection, what each is and how they are connected?
Well, again, right, it's all terminologies. So it only defines as you want to define it, or a group wants to define it, or the world wants to define it. But you and I have talked about the fact that we perceive the metaverse has already happened a long time ago once technology started to enter the realm of communication, right? All the way back to the telegraph and the telephone, and then traditional television, and then to where we are today. To me, the Web 2 to Web 3, and see if you agree with this, is that Web 2 is largely the two-dimensional pixel plane of the web. Most websites live off a two-dimensional grid, right? Mm-hmm. And Web 3 is starting to explore Z-depth, is starting to explore the third dimension of the screen, which logically means that you're going to want to use spatial devices for some of it, not all of it. But you can sort of track it along the lines of video games, right? From when video games, when we grew up, were 2D scrolling experiences for the most part. Then people started to figure out with more advanced graphics and more advanced processors that you could start to go into the Z depth. And now almost all video games use Z depth, right? Minecraft, Fortnite, Grand Theft Auto, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Every video game you think about. The web is now largely starting to turn into that. Mm-hmm. So it's a richer graphical interface that allows for social and productivity and things to change.
So let me read some of the comments, starting with our friend Kathy Hackle, who's going to be on the show next month.
Yeah,
I think she's going to get a green jacket. That'll be her third.
Yeah, she's like us. She's like one of us. Yeah.
And so she tried to answer. Tell me what you think of this explanation. Quote, to me, Web3 and the metaverse are intrinsically linked, but not the same thing. Web3 centers on how people, spaces, places, and assets, things, are connected in this new iteration of the internet, while the metaverse centers around how we will experience the future of the internet, which is enabled by many different technologies.
I largely agree, but sort of interchangeable. Like I don't think that's. I mean, I think she's making the right points, but I think it's just like how we argue what is the internet. Well, the internet is sort of anything you want it to be once you connect it to something that allows you to view it and experience it, right?
As somebody whose job it is to make sense of the language around technology, I stumped. Okay, few more topics for this morning, and then we'll get to Ryan, who I see just entered the waiting room. So we'll let him cool his heels in there for a few minutes. But I just wanted to remark, you know, this is Schadenfreude week in XR. I mean, Lucas Matney, who's the editor-in-chief of TechCrunch, and a guy I follow and admire a lot,
Mhm.
took off on Facebook and VR. It's like he showed the flip side of everything we talk about, which is what we generally don't talk about.
Yep.
Because, we're optimists and we're fanboys and we're excited, but he took the dark side, right?
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
is no advertising and revenue in VR. That like Facebook business is going to drag them down.
Right.
VR not good enough yet. VR headsets sitting on the shelves.
Yeah.
Apple punting for several years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a legitimate way to look at it. And this was accompanied by a hailstorm of stories about Microsoft engineers being poached by Meta from their immersive group under Alex Kipman, along with
Yes. Right.
commercial HoloLens being put on ice. They've been having trouble with their IVAS project with the military, although both Microsoft and the military say it's going great. It has suffered when one of its trials were suspended and so forth. So maybe that's going to happen or not, but it was followed by a wave of protestation from the company, particularly from Alex Kipman, who started tweeting about it.
Yeah, don't believe anything you read on the internet.
Very rare.
Right.
For Alex, somebody like Alex to jump in to a dialogue which is so speculative, but the insider, is a real investigative journalism. And so, where there's smoke, there's fire. So it was a very depressing week for XR in that respect. As you know, I predicted Metastock would come roaring back, having gone back to its, I don't know, March 2020 price, which ain't bad. I mean, if you believe, I believe the decline in their business is going to be very slow. I don't argue it's not going to happen, but we're talking about a company making $120 billion a year, making $119 billion a year. Yeah. So it's not like the value has been stripped away from that company. If their metaverse plan works, that people are going to hail them as a genius, as they have for their acquisition of Instagram for $1 billion, for which they were highly derided in 2012 or whenever that was.
Yeah, I was thinking about this a little bit through the lens of the long history with Apple and my sort of long connection to Apple as a tech company that there was a period of time where it landed on rocky shoals and almost went away, right? Like our memories are short. Obviously, people forget that now we have a company that hovers around a $3 trillion valuation. At one point, its stock was so low that it almost, left the exchange and went away. As
let's not forget that I believe it was in 1997 that Microsoft loaned Apple $150 million because they were worried if Apple went out of business, they were absolutely crushed by antitrust rules.
Right. And and certainly Apple turned the corner, right? And with the
they turned the corner by bringing back Steve Jobs,
with the re-energizing of Steve and his ethos, and they were able to really turn it into something new. So and we've seen the other side of this equation with companies like Sun Microsystems, which, by the way, is the backside of the sign, the Facebook now Meta sign. I don't know if it's still there, but on my last trip up there, the original Facebook campus is the Sun Microsystems campus, and they left the logo up on the back and on some of the doors to remind you that if you're not always on your toes, what happened to Sun Microsystems could happen to then Facebook. So it's interesting that a piece of it did indeed happen because of the changes in the wind, but you have to know that they're a nimble enough company to have foresight. And while, the heads of TechCrunch and others may report about, that none of this is happening, the reality is change is happening. And you have to be aware that devices are changing.
I don't know how this is different than the introduction of game consoles when Sony lost $1 billion at the time. It was unthinkable that they had to invest that kind of money to launch essentially what was viewed in the late 90s as a toy.
Right.
So people have short memories. That is now one of the largest businesses in the United States. Activision purchased for $75 billion by Microsoft. We've seen all these other, ZeniMax, Bethesda Software snapped up. So there's a wave of consolidation going on because this represents the bulk of the entertainment business today. So the world is quite different than was 20 years ago. Oh, so, and meanwhile, the Super Bowl is going to be filled with VR and
They're spending huge amounts of money to promote it, and
followed by a Foo Fighters concert in
which
Horizon.
we'll both watch. Yep.
That doesn't give you FOMO for not having Meta. I do think there's a way to participate on desktop, but being in Horizon venues with other avatars is always a special experience, especially since it's the Foo Fighters. It's being produced by Supersphere. I'm sure Oculus is lavishing 10 or $20 million on this thing. So I'm actually looking forward to that more than the Super Bowl, although go Rams. I am so excited to see the Rams-Bengals game. I think it's going to be the game of the year.
Well, certainly every playoff game up until it was the game of the century. So if that's any indication, yes.
Great segue to sports, right?
Yeah.
Ryan on standby, so let's bring him in.
Hey, Charlie.
Ryan Engle, you are live on the This Week in XR podcast. Welcome.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Ryan.
Our pleasure. We were singing your praises at the beginning of the show because Ted and I are so addicted to Golf Plus.
Yeah.
You know, I said it's like regular golf, just as frustrating, but it only takes an hour and a half.
That's awesome.
It's the only place I can hit a 330-yard drive on a driving range. So thanks for that.
Me too.
I appreciate it.
It can help the ego a little bit. Yeah, we've heard the golf is virtual, but the frustration is real.
The golf is virtual, but the frustration is real. I love that.
Yeah.
So speaking of 300-yard drives, you guys are crushing it, right? You had an amazing.
Nice segue, Charlie. That was good.
Yeah, I hope that was impromptu. Yeah, we've been off to the races. So the game has been out now for just under 3 months. And it looks like by the time we hit our 3-month mark, we'll have about 2 million rounds in game.
Fantastic.
When it came out, I thought, well, I'm never going to leave Pro Putt because I'm really good. You know, but then Golf Plus got under my skin, and my wife was like, "It's like real golf. You're like doing it all the time." I'm like, "Well, I'm just trying to get good enough to beat Ted."
Right.
That's the beauty of it. Yeah, we also found that if you have 3 or more friends in the game, then you play 3 times as many rounds. So we're definitely seeing it is a very social experience. And that's one of the things that we plan on prioritizing is like helping Charlies find their Teds.
That's really interesting. That makes sense. Yeah, the social aspect of it.
So, and you added a PGA course.
We did. Valhalla Country Club, Jack Nicklaus course, hosted a Ryder Cup and a couple majors, and it'll be the host of a major in a couple of years from now as well.
Won't it be amazing when you're watching golf on TV and you see they're at Sawgrass or whatever, and then you pop into Golf Plus and you can play the same?
It's like, oh, I just played that hole. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's what excites me the most personally, because I've been watching golf, you know, since I was a kid, and I haven't really played on many courses that pros have played on.
Most people aren't in that elite group. They play the local courses and, you know, the one in Florida near the resort.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and a lot of the PGA courses
to run around to, you know, wherever the PGA courses are. That's what the big money guys do.
Totally. Yeah. A lot of them are private, you know, and if they're public, they're booked up for years in advance. So basically $400. Yeah. Pebble's a beautiful course. It's public, but it takes a lot of planning and a lot of money to get on there and play around. So that's where I think VR has an interesting opportunity is, you know, letting people play these beautiful courses, and you could play Pebble in the morning, St. Andrews in the afternoon. You can't do that in real life.
When are Pebble and St. Andrews coming? What's going to be the pace of addition of new courses?
So we've basically got sort of 3 top priorities this year. One of them, the most important one, is famous courses. That's our top priority. We're having some incredible conversations. They're pretty far along, but until we get it signed, I'm weary to announce anything. Mm-hmm. Bottom line, we're really looking at, you know, the courses that do show up in tour events, the courses that people have heard of, the courses that people are asking about. And the cool thing is, you know, some of these courses are off limits to video games, and, you know, golf is kind of an interesting sport where there's a lot of tradition, and there's always the question of, is this enhancing our course experience, or is this hurting it? And the cool thing that we found is, as we show people what the experience is like and get them in the headset and they try it, they're like, oh, this isn't Wii golf. This
Right.
isn't a video game. Like, this actually feels like being on the golf course. It's obviously not exactly the same, but it's close enough where they're like, we want to, we really love the idea of being one of the first courses to be involved in this new space. And we think it's going to attract people.
I think the Professional Golf Association, just like Meta, needs to disrupt itself. They've been complaining for years that they're not appealing to younger demographic. Young adults don't have the time. They don't have the money. They don't have the wherewithal, and it's threatening the future of golf. And so they've been looking for a solution to this for a decade or more, when they realized that the attrition among senior golfers versus the people they're adding was going to put them in a downward trajectory. And so I think the idea that you could add something like this, which is less of a financial commitment, which you can do in your house in an hour, where you get the same addictive feeling that you can get mastery, but it's hard. That's what makes video games really addictive. It's kind of easy at first, but then you have to build mastery if you really want to compete. And I think that this game could drive people to real courses, but they have to do something. They have to attract younger people. They have to attract a broader demographic. They have to attract more women.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So this is, to me, an opportunity in the making.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. That's our mission as a company. Is we really want to introduce a lot of new people to golf that would otherwise not get into it for all the reasons that you mentioned. It's hard to pick up. It's hard to hit a real golf ball. You have to have clubs. You have to spend a lot of time practicing. There are a lot of unspoken rules on the course that can make you feel awkward. It just takes a ton of time to play. All that being said, we're not trying to replace golf. I love playing golf. I love going to a real golf course. We're just trying to help people get over that initial hurdle to say the game is worth the effort. I think most golfers would agree it will be frustrating. At times you'll want to quit, but at the end, once you get to a certain point, the game is worth the effort. We want to get people that feeling in VR a lot faster, a lot cheaper, so that, hopefully they do kind of want to put in the effort to go try it out in real life and play a real round of golf.
So Ryan, here's my question to you, because as I first did it with Pro Putt, and then when the Top Golf range kind of got in there, and I thought, okay, so I was wondering, in your mindset as you were creating the experiences, there are a lot of golf simulators that are out there, but they're in and of themselves kind of exotic, hard to set up, a lot of room.
They're big, yeah. You need to have a McMansion.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or you go to a place where they have, indoor golf and golf simulators.
And many country clubs in colder areas do have golf simulators.
Yeah. So my question is, as you evolve the product, the only real limitation I see so far to someone that likes to play real golf and would work to train on a simulator, you probably see where this is going, is to actually have a real club in your hand and enough space, and a mat where you can swing that club. And, as the headsets get a little lighter and a little more nimble, the idea of needing a golf simulator can actually go away, and you can actually really start to train and really see real results. Is that part of your trajectory? And maybe when will we see an accessory that's actually a real club for
yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you're familiar with kind of the existing accessories where you can put your Quest controller in here and get one step in that direction, but if the weight distribution is not the same.
So hold that up and tell people what that is, because
so you can find this on Etsy. It's from our RM Designs.
The
guy who makes this
guy is printing those things in his garage.
Yeah, the guy Royce is amazing. He and I email all the time. We're actually working together on the next version of it because he's great. And the controller just slides right in. There's no straps or anything. It clips in, and it's not coming out. I mean, you can swing as hard as you want. And now you're holding a golf grip instead of a controller, which like immersion level. So we've even been chatting with some of the best golf instructors and coaches, sending them a headset, and they're able to hit their shots the way that they do in real life, even with this. Now, it's not perfect, but to your point, we want it to be perfect eventually. So the way that we see technology going, you guys are well aware, but obviously there's virtual reality. And right now the Quest 2 is amazing, but it is fairly bulky and the controllers are bigger and all of that. And ultimately, we believe that, VR and AR effectively turn into one headset, a mixed reality headset, whatever you want to call it. You can see through, and it's much lighter, and the resolution's great. The Vario is a pretty good example of kind of what's possible there, but compact. So ultimately, there's no reason that even when you're playing a real round of golf, there's no reason that eventually we couldn't have either a little tracker or just the cameras alone. Every single time you hit a shot,
maybe your iPhone
use computer vision.
The tracker.
Well, that's a real thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's just a matter of time until the technology's at that point where we're able to use computer vision or trackers to basically track every single shot that you hit automatically, even while you're playing a round of golf. And then it can overlay like, oh, this was the path of your club. This was your ball speed. This is all that information. So long term, we think that, long term, we want to be along for your ride, whether you're at home playing Golf Plus with friends using just a controller in kind of the lowest friction possible way, whether you want to upgrade the experience a bit, have this kind of half controller so you're still holding a grip, but you don't have to worry about hitting your ceiling or having a huge space or breaking something. Whether you do want to sort of attach it to a golf club and you do have room in your house, or you want to go to a bay somewhere and swing full clubs and eventually even, hit a real golf ball and get the actual ball data versus us running our, physics simulation to understand what the ball is doing. So we want to be along for the ride, when you're on the course using kind of more of an AR experience where you have AR glasses, and when you're at home playing something more similar to Golf Plus. We think it's the full gambit, and technology and golf are just kind of made for each other.
Great. This is what I was hoping you would walk through the future trajectory, and did it well. So I appreciate that. And because what we look at as an industry, as we study this stuff, is effectively simulation behavior and the advancements of simulation behavior, right? And its value across all sectors. And recreation is, of course, a big one.
Sports and fitness has turned out to be one of the biggest categories.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So right now we're kind of, I guess you could call it fitness to some degree, although I think some people would even argue if you call golf fitness in general, even the real thing.
If you're not walking the course.
But, it is a sport. It is a sport. It requires skill, and there's definitely sort of the recreational component. I think that's one of the big advantages that we have over a lot of other VR experiences is, what you see is what you get. And a lot of VR isn't like that because it is kind of hard to demonstrate, what is this actually going to be like when I get in there? Whereas if we can tell you it feels like playing golf and you go in and it feels like playing golf, that's kind of a satisfying experience. So I think that's why a lot of sports games like golf and table tennis have been so fun, even without these like core game loops that you get in a lot of other games that kind of have other things that keep you coming back to earn more points or unlock the next level or things like that.
Right.
So I love the idea of tournaments. I can't wait to see those taking shape, because it's a great way to meet people who like Golf Plus. You get those people in your friends list. You can see when they're there.
So that's our second. I mentioned we have kind of three priorities. First one's famous courses. That one kind of speaks for itself. Everybody wants to play the famous courses. The second is kind of what we're calling events, which would include tournaments. Right now, we have a decent sized Discord community that you can join, and people are constantly talking about the game, which is really fun. And some of them have broken out to create their own Discord communities that they're managing that do run weekly tournaments.
And that happens in real golf as well.
Absolutely, exactly. Tournaments. I mean, other than the PGA, which
a lot
runs
of bespoke tournaments.
100%
online in real golf. In fact, my son, who is a professional of sorts, participates in several of them in the LA area. So they're a popular way for people to get engaged with other golfers, and I guess now get engaged with other golf plusers.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, these tournaments are pretty serious. I compete in them myself because
and is that unfair or what?
Yeah, well,
the developer competing in the tournaments. I don't know.
I'm not using my cheat codes, and I definitely don't win. So the folks that are playing the game are at an incredible level of skill, and even though I built the physics engine and obviously am the founder of the game, you got to hit the shot. That's that's the reality of it. There's some folks on our team that have been part of the process as long as me, and we're all at different skill levels. Let's just put it that way. So it's so fun to play with some of our players that just take it to a level where I'm like, how are you even doing that? Like, yeah. Do we need to change something? Because it feels like you're cheating right now.
Is it too easy now?
I think the biggest, if I had to look at like a weaker point in it, is the putting. The shots feel pretty real to me. Like, I feel like, and when you said it in the medium or the harder, like it's really doing what your swing is doing. If you're hitting inside out, it's going to fade off to the wrong spot. It's going to do stuff. The putting is still not at the simulation level that I would like to feel like when because I'm a pretty good short game guy. So, and I know you can change the speeds and stuff, and I've experimented with it. I just wonder how you evolve that part.
No, it's actually funny you should say that, because we feel the exact opposite, and most of the compliments we get is the putting.
It's not them, it's you.
Yeah, it's probably me.
I'm really curious. Are you playing on pro mode?
I played on pro mode, and I played on the medium mode, not
amateur mode. Amateur mode. Okay, I would play on pro mode if you really want the sort of true to life. And I guess my one question for you would be, are you using one of these?
No, not as of yet, but I'll go get one.
Okay, yeah. So for putting, that makes the most difference.
That's probably what it is, because just doing the little thing, I just feel like the speed, I can never get the speed right.
The biggest thing with when you're using just the controller is it's really easy to get handsy.
Yeah.
And if you do that when you're putting, the putter's the heaviest club in the bag, right? So you can't flick a putter in real life very easily. You can flick this really easily. So if you're about to hit and your wrist turns a little bit, it causes the head to go much faster.
And that's why it's going 20 feet past when I would.
But as soon as you attach it to this, that extra distribution actually makes it a lot harder to kind of flick with the weight down there. So once you try this, I think
Charlie and I'll get those, and then we'll join you.
We feel pretty good about the physics portion, but yeah, the feel of it is obviously a very personal thing.
Yeah. Because I think the full shots are actually quite good. Like, I feel like when I'm hitting, it's actually kind of at my skill level, which is interesting.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good to hear. Yeah, I can't wait. We can send you one of these too.
That'd be great. Yeah.
I'd love to get your feedback on the putting specifically. I think for the short game, this thing makes a big difference.
Do the best players all use it?
It depends. A lot of them don't, because they can hit the ball further with just the controller.
They can tweak it. Yeah.
So they've got their short games just dialed in, and they've got so many reps with it that a lot of them are hesitant to switch over. So it kind of goes both ways. It's a very personal thing.
Interesting.
Right. So one last question before we let you go. What do you think is the secret sauce? There have been lots of golf simulators out there, since the Rift and the Quest. The Rift and the Vive came out in 2016. So none of those really has caught on the way that Pro Putt and Top Golf and Golf Plus have. So what is it?
I think we lost Charlie for a second there. Charlie re-asked that. You broke up for a second.
Yeah, I said, what is it that Golf Plus is doing that all these previous and other golf titles do not? Without naming them, what is it that you are so good at that makes it so much more of a satisfying simulation?
Yeah, that's a tough one for me to answer. Obviously, I'm biased, but the interesting.
Well, go ahead and brag. That's why you're here.
The interesting answer from my perspective, which is kind of counter to what Ted just said, is we pretty strategically started with putting as the core experience within Pro Putt. Specifically, the physics of the ball. I totally understand the feel of it is tough to do with the controller, but golf simulators don't do putting. Most of them you can't even putt. Chipping's terrible because you can't see the contours, you can't see the elevation. They show you a number and it's like, I don't know how to hit a 25-yard shot. I know how to hit a shot from here to that tree, but I don't know what a 25-yard shot is. So we really wanted to get the short game right, because at the end of the day, that's where the ball gets in the hole. And if you're not putting the ball in the hole, are you really playing golf? That's a debate. So we focus heavily on getting the physics for the putting right. And then I think the other big thing is, I'm the founder of the company, and Rob, who you've met, is my co-founder. Yeah. We've both been playing golf. I started when I was 11. He started as soon as he could walk. We both played competitive golf in high school, and we played with our dads, and it's a very dear activity to our hearts. I have spent thousands of hours, personally wrote every single line of our physics model. And for Rob and me, we were not going to release this game until we felt like playing golf, versus kind of all these other gaming aspects that could have made it more addictive for other reasons. We've got effectively no game loops, no real progression, not even really tournaments yet. We just launched a golf experience, and we felt like if we can get the golf to feel right, then we can add those other components later, but we don't want other components to mask the golf experience of playing by yourself or with friends. Yeah. So I think the big thing comes down to, I've been playing golf since I was 11 and writing code since I was 13, and this is my dream project.
You are the modern success story of how to take your passion and turn it into a product and a career that's actually working in a new medium, in a new industry, which is fantastic. And I would agree with you that in the Pro Putt simulator that Charlie and I have done, that putting experience is quite good, because it is sort of this fantasy experience and you do get a good sense of it. But my take on it, maybe you'll agree or disagree again, which is great, is that you learned from the driving range, from the Top Golf experience of actually figuring out how to make a driving range work. And then you took all of that and applied it to the course, as opposed to the other way around. Because when we started doing the driving range, which I go to the Top Golf in Vegas and we have fun there when we're out on work trips and stuff. And you kind of created that simulation correctly, even to the point where you've got like music feeds up and you can load your YouTube videos and watch music in the background and choose whatever genre you want. And there's bays and you can join. And it's like, oh, you know what? This range really works. And then when you start to get to the driving thing and you're like, oh, I can pound these things and it really works. And then the next evolution was now take all those physics that were really working. When you hit a 5-iron and it goes the way a 5-iron should, and when you hit it right, you hit it right versus hit it wrong, and you can see where it goes. Then you took that to the course and suddenly the course worked. And I don't think any other golf simulator had that progression in my opinion. So I don't know if that's correct or not.
That was very strategic. We wanted to nail putting, launch Pro Putt, get some traction, add the Top Golf range, get into kind of the full swing simulation stuff. And then that bought us some time last year to put all the pieces together, to do the deal with the PGA, to get some real courses built, figure out how do we even support 18-hole courses in VR with no load time. You can go anywhere on the course immediately with no load time once you're in there. And it's like a pretty big,
and let me ask this, how the relationship with Top Golf, did you come to them? Did they come to you? How did you land that? Because that's a big
we came to them. We're in Austin, they're in Dallas. So we had some friends, and we had done an AR app in the golf space. What's that?
I'm going to be in Austin next month, South by Southwest.
We should play some golf.
Let's try it.
or whatever else. But yeah, we should definitely sync up. But yeah, we kind of had some, a network there. And once the Quest came out, we developed a putting prototype using some physics that we had developed for our AR app prior to that. And came up with a prototype where we actually did connect the Quest 1 controller directly to a putter. So the feeling there was, cool. Insane. You could even, tap the ground with your putter and feel it, right? So it was insane. And we showed them that prototype, and they were like, well, our business is doing pretty well. This is before COVID. Like everything's going pretty well, but if keep us posted. And a couple of weeks later, Oculus had reached out to them to see if they wanted to do something. So they connected Oculus to us. And then, we showed Oculus what we were doing, and Topgolf was in the room during that meeting, and Oculus was excited enough to get us in the store. And then, we're like, hey, Topgolf, we've got an app in the store. Do you want to be involved? And they said, okay.
That's a good story. Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of went a little bit backwards, but that's how we got involved with them. And they've just been an amazing partner. And obviously they're pretty thrilled to see that, VR golf is another great way to attract people to Topgolf and to the game as a whole.
Yeah.
Now that Topgolf's merged with Callaway, they care about
right. Now it's going to go even bigger. Yeah.
Well, Ryan Engle, co-founder and CEO of Golf Plus, thanks for coming on the show. It's great to chat with you once again. Do you have a favorite team in the Super Bowl?
I can't say, because I don't even know who's playing. That's terrible.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Golf lover, but not sports nut.
Yeah, exactly. Very focused on golf. Okay, well, there you go.
If it were the Cowboys playing, I would know for sure.
Yeah, I'll bet you would.
But since it's not, I don't even know. So yeah.
All right.
Hopefully the good guys.
Have a great weekend. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you next Friday.
Thanks, Charlie.